Real happy to be joined by my next guest here on the Sports Card Nation podcast. He's the hobby editor at Beckett Media, and Ryan Cracknell. You almost need no introduction. Most people do know you, but wanted to give you a proper one. You're a little younger than me, but you've been involved in the hobby for about as long as I have, which is a long time. So I've been itching to get you on, Ryan, and here you are. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So I know a good portion of what you do at Beckett. It's not pricing everybody, by the way, just to get that out there. But for those that may not know or may not know everything, and I'm sure I don't know everything, kind of describe. You've been there. I think you're working on almost 7 years now. Kind of what you
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, more or less, it's basically I'm guided by a philosophy, and my philosophy, overriding philosophy, is that an educated collector is a better collector.
Yep.
The more you know about the stuff that's out there, the happier you're going to be with your collection, no matter what that is, however you collect, whatever. So that kind of guides me every day. So what I do, my focus is on the website, the Beckett News portion of the website. So I'll do things like write up a preview. If a checklist comes out, I format the checklist so that it's usable, break it down into teams as well if possible. Sometimes if there's news things that come along that fit into that as well. That's kind of the gist of what I do. Um, just building things to help resources to help collectors build their collections.
Yep. And I know you do a lot of the checklists. That's a huge thing for folks that want to, see what's in a product, obviously,
Mhm.
as early as they can. I mean, be honest, how often do you get people message you or contact your emails and try to get that stuff either early or ask you maybe ahead of time, like, hey, do you know this now? Can you give me the 411 on it?
Every day, just about. It honestly, it depends on what the product is. If there's something hot, like right now, Mosaic football is a big
Yep.
one, and the checklist didn't come out till the day that the set came out, and so there was
Yeah.
no like there was none of that buildup of, ooh, I'm going to be chasing this guy, even though we all know what rookies are going to be in a football
Yeah.
product, or really any product. Still, it's making everything officially official and just being able to see it. So that one was tricky. But no, like all the time, I'll get messages on Twitter or in my email like, "Where's this checklist?" And it's like, honestly, the with checklists, I have zero control.
Yep.
Um, Everyone gets them all at the same time. With Panini, they
Yeah.
put them on their website. Everyone gets them at the same time. Top sends them out to a whole bunch of people all at once. Upper Deck does the same thing, and there's no secret to when I get it. It's when it shows up in my email or I see it posted on Panini's website. That's the secret sauce behind it. So
Yeah. And that's the thing. You don't have control over that. The companies
no,
release that when they release that. So someone can send you 10 emails. There's nothing you can do about it. You get it when you get it. And in pandemic, I don't have to tell this to you, but in pandemic times, some of these checklists aren't coming out in the same form or fashion as we've sort of been used to before. Heck, some of the products point blank aren't coming out themselves, are either not coming out on time or canceled altogether. So it's just all everything's sort of upside down. It's I wish people, for your sake, people would kind of know that it's out of your control and maybe not bombard you or your
yeah,
email inbox with that stuff. But that is what it is. That's the nature of the beast, as they say. You're based in Canada. How often, either as part of your job for Beckett or just in general, how often do you get to the States?
oh, well, it's been over 2 years now since I last
Yeah.
did. The pandemic has thrown a lot of things out. I
Yep.
really haven't done much traveling probably in the last 4 years, because even the year or two before that, we were dealing with some family health things,
Yep.
I'll say, and
Yep.
I didn't want to leave anywhere from home for a good while there. Once things settle down, hopefully I'll be able to get to the national this year. I think the
Yep.
last one that I was at, I've honestly lost track. I think it might have been 2018 was the last time I was at one.
Yep.
So it's been a while. Sometimes there are meetings in Dallas, but not a lot. I've been
Yeah.
down there a few times. It's always fun, and when you work from home, it's just nice to see the faces that you email with, even if it's just a hello or going out for lunch or sitting in a meeting together. It's nice to see them, and they're all good people. That's one of the nice things about
Yep.
working for Beckett is everyone that I'm surrounded by, they're good people. So
Yeah, that's always a good thing. A lot of people probably can't say the same thing. What's kind of a traditional question? What's your favorite thing about at your time at Beckett? You might have even just said it, but I'll
um,
ask anyway.
well, part of it, I guess the cool factor would be Beckett was something that I grew up with.
Yeah.
As a kid when I first started collecting, it was every month you'd buy the Beckett. So being a part of that now, even though it's very different and I get it and everything else, and just the challenge of print media in general is different. But I feel like I'm making a different kind of mark, and my hope is that I'm holding up the standard that Dr. Beckett and his teams established back then, as I can with my skills, today's hobby, all that jazz.
Yeah.
Um, and really, the other part of it is I've converted something that I did as a hobby into my job. Like that's my career. Before I got into the hobby full time, I was a teacher,
Hmm.
and I wanted to be home more with my kids. That was something that I realized as a kid growing up myself, was just having a parent around for my kids, because my parents were too busy working, and so teaching became too much. Technically, I tell myself that I'm on a break from teaching, but it's been a lot of years now. So who knows what the future holds, but it's a good place and it's a good situation as my family grew up. So doing something that's fun, like I'm around cards all day, which isn't always glamorous. It often isn't glamorous, but it's still pretty darn cool. And to be able to make that my career right now is definitely fun.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I want to ask you the worst thing. I think you touch on a little bit with people. Hey, where's the checklist? What's the delay? Is this guy going to be in it or not? That sort of stuff. Which I'm sure you're used to it by now. But you know, uh, it is what it is, right? But collect like your hobby background. I know I've heard you talk about it before. One of the first sets that really garnered your attention was the ET cards from back in the day. I mean, that was just a huge movie. One of the first early movies I seen in the theater. I bought the cards too, and that kind of got the ball rolling for you as a young man or kid, truthfully. But since then, that was around 83, so we're talking, 38 years, 39 years ago. What's been generally your interest through the years?
Oh, it's evolving and shrinking at the same time. My biggest passions are baseball, number one, and non-sport entertainment, 1B. I also like basketball quite a lot,
Yeah.
especially from my high school time, late '90s, and anything that channels that vibe now. I love building sets. That was kind of where I got started. There's the joy of organizing stacks of cards and putting them in order. I can't explain it, but collectors get it, and that's a source of relaxation for me still to this day. That and putting stickers in a sticker book, like one of the Panini
Really?
sticker albums.
Yeah.
That was another um, gateway collectible thing for me as well when I was younger. I collect Montreal Expos, more or less just the team sets, though nothing too fancy. And I have a really, really big John Jaha collection as far as John
Yeah.
Jaha can go. I have basically every card of his that's ever been released that
Wow.
isn't a one of a kind one, except
Yeah.
for really rare checklist for marbles that has like 20 other guys, including Frank Thomas and Ken Griffey Jr. So I'll never get it because I have to compete with the Griffey guys, and I can't do
Yeah.
that.
I hear you. Now, and I've heard you talk about this before. You're like hockey's not really big in your wheelhouse, which being in Canada, how come? Why would you say that isn't?
It never. I, Probably the big thing is I played baseball.
Yeah,
4-year-olds can skate laps around me to this day. Like
yeah,
I was never comfortable on the ice.
yeah,
I really like watching hockey live, but I'd never really gotten into watching it on TV or even following it super closely. When I was really little, that was the Gretzky era. So everyone
yeah,
on the playground, we would talk about the Oilers.
yeah,
But it's just kind of one of those things that just it didn't speak to me, I guess is
yeah,
what it is. And I think I also realized kind of early on that having a niche of being a Canadian focused on baseball is kind of good weird. Like it's
yeah,
odd in the sense that people don't expect it, but completely harmless at the same time. So maybe that was my teenage rebellion, or something like that. I don't know, but
yeah,
it just hockey doesn't speak to me. And now as a parent, um, sports where you injure your brain freak me out, and
yeah,
so hockey is one of those, and it's just kind of gone by the that and boxing.
yeah.
Love boxing movies, but I have a hard time watching
Yeah.
it now, so
Yeah, I mean it's called a sweet science, but it's also it can be barbaric. We've had I don't need to tell you this, people died in the ring. Hopefully it doesn't ever happen again, but it's happened multiple times and I kind of grew up. I'm a New York City kid, and so kind of grew up. Sort of, my grandfather was an amateur boxer. My dad was an amateur boxer, and I was taught how to box, just more or less to defend myself if need be. And so it's sort of ingrained, maybe because of where I'm from as well. But I hear what you're saying. I think you're exactly right. It's can be a brutal sport when you can hardly recognize some boxers' faces after the fight has concluded, and then you hear some of them talk later in life, even after their
mhm.
boxing career's over, and it's hard to understand what they're saying. And I'm not saying that in a pick on them sort of way, but just that's kind of the culmination of taking all those blows that it's affected them medically. And it's kind of sad to see that their career, while it made them probably in most cases, that fighter a good living. The On the other side of it, that's the quality of life isn't the same as maybe me or you or someone in a less brutal profession. So I fully get that. You mentioned collecting the Montreal Expos. I was being here in the Syracuse, New York area now, and even New York City. I did get to a couple Expo games back in the day. And how how many what percentage of all the Expo cards would you say? Do you know like what how close you are to having the run?
I haven't done the math. As far as base set go, like base team sets, regular ones, I'm pretty sure I have all the tops, like the main tops,
Yeah,
Donruss, Upper Deck, all the main ones. It's more some of the early like 60s O-Pee-Chee, ironically enough, being Canadian,
yeah,
but probably just as much the stingy side in me of not wanting to pay for the French when I already have the English.
yeah,
But those are a challenge. And then on the flip side, it's towards the end of their run with all the short prints of the early 2000s. Those are my biggest gaps. I've started adding things like early refractors, from Topps Finest and Pinnacle Museum Collection parallels. So I'm starting to branch out a little bit more, but not too, just enough to keep me busy and everything else.
Yeah.
So it's close. I will say that if you're looking at a base run of Expos, it is really close. Percentage wise, no idea. I don't think I'll
Yeah.
ever figure it out. I'd rather be spending my time browsing online, looking at stuff than doing math,
Yeah.
doing enough math during the day. So
Like Bo Thompson, you don't have the expos meter.
yeah, it's all no, and I'll never. I need to downsize sooner rather than later. Like one of my collecting goals for the year is to have 10,000 less cards than when I started the year with,
Yeah.
which it sounds like a lot, but I don't think it is because there's a lot that are just they've been sitting in boxes for decades that I haven't even thought about. So
Yeah.
need to go find them a
It
good home.
Yeah. Now, how do you display the expo cards do you have? Are they in boxes? Are they in binders?
Mostly binders. I've a few
Yeah.
years ago I started moving a lot of things into binders because I just found that I looked at them more. If they're in a
Yeah.
box,
Yeah.
they're all piled up for one, and then two, there's always the concern that I'll drop them or something like that. So I'm like, you know what? I really enjoy going through the Expos cards. So let's start putting them in binders. As I finish the team set, I'll put them in a binder, and then all my
Yeah.
binders are organized by like brand and everything else, so that I can find them pretty easily as well. So
Yeah, that's cool. I was gonna ask you if how organized are they? You got them by year, and so do you ever find yourself like you think you don't have one, and
all the
you
time.
pick it up with, and they're like, oh, I did have this thing,
Oh, actually, it's more the opposite for me, where I think I'm done
and then you
something, and then you're like, "Oh, I'm missing one," but it does go both ways. It's more when I'm
yeah,
building, like, a larger set, like a top set that has 500, 700 cards, and all of a sudden I realize I only have 499 after waiting
y-
years to finish it. I very much am very patient in how I build a lot of my sets. Like, it's normal for me to finish something now from like 1996. I'm in no rush.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes that's the best way to be. It's when you sort of put that pressure on yourself that
Yeah.
it becomes difficult, and maybe even you hear people overpaying or something like that. With the kind of I'll get it when I get it, I think you set yourself up for better success. Is there one Expos player like you're more fond of? Like, do you have a favorite guy, or is it just everyone that played for the organization?
It's more a team thing. It kind of
Yeah,
got into, I think when I was starting that part of my collection, I was doing some sports history classes at university,
yeah,
and it just kind of seemed like a museum sort of thing where I didn't need things on my walls or anything like that. But I could have a nice history of that franchise. Plus, honestly, I knew at the time that they weren't going to be in Montreal forever. And I'm a
yeah,
completist. I like finality in my collecting so that I can see, I know what the goal is. And one of the things that I'm not necessarily not looking forward to, but if they come back, I'm going to have to decide: am I going to be collecting new Expos or X-rays or whatever they are if they come back,
yeah.
or do I just go Expos 1.0 and leave it at that? Which I don't know. I'll say one thing now, but probably change my mind 15 times. I'll
Cross
wait for
that
that
bridge.
to happen.
Yeah, it's funny. I was about to ask you that, Ryan. Is like there's been talk at bringing baseball back to Montreal. You're you're right there. Like, what do you think we're going to see that at some point?
I
Whether I'm not
I
saying at some point.
I think they're in the running.
Yeah,
I'm on the West Coast. It's going to be hard for me to make it to a game if
yeah,
they do come back. Like, Toronto's way closer than Montreal is.
yeah,
But I could see. I actually like Vancouver as a city for a baseball team. On the West Coast, we're super passionate about baseball.
yeah. They
Some of
have
the
a minor league, don't they? Don't you have? There is or at least
There
there
is the
was.
Canadians. I think
Yeah,
I'm not 100% sure what they are now. They might be double A when they did all the rearranging last year.
Yeah,
But we've had some smaller leagues even below, the major league, minor league systems. And the West Coast teams were typically the high attendance, all things
yeah.
considered. Not necessarily huge, but we like our baseball on the West Coast.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you think that you'll see baseball back in Montreal? And if it does come back, I mean, they're going to be the Expos again, or you think they'll try to brand them as a whole new
I think
organization?
it depends on the situation. If it's the Tampa thing that they've been talking about, where them and Tampa will split time, I don't see
Yeah,
how you could have two different team names. Like
yeah,
maybe they will because that makes them more money. But identity wise, I think that's chaotic and not cool. But if they get a full franchise, I don't see why they wouldn't go with the Expos unless there's some sort of copyright ownership of the name sort of thing, like with the Nationals in Washington.
yeah,
But it doesn't. The Expos are loved in Montreal for people who love baseball, and there's the history. So personally, I think it'd be silly to change it unless there's a reason to, beyond control.
yeah. I have heard that like half the games in Montreal, the other half in Tampa Bay. You know, I think that's sort of goofy.
Mhm.
Tampa Bay, and here's the crazy thing, Ryan, and I think you'll agree. Tampa Bay's actually been pretty successful as far as playoff runs and the World Series, and yet they just can't get people to come to that ballpark. And so I think getting less half less games, cutting the games in half, what is that going to do? If you want to go to Montreal and you want to bring baseball back to Montreal, give them the full season. I just think it's silly. I think it's unfair to the players too. They got to travel.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not like it's close, so the travel's more. I think it gives an unfair competitive advantage to the visiting team as well. And so, if you're going to move to Montreal, if it is the Rays, like you said, that become the Montreal expert, then just do it full board. It's half. I know the Bills did that in football in Toronto with a couple games. Football is a little different. It's a 16, 7, well, now 17, but at the time, 16 game season. They played a couple games in Toronto. Much of that was to sort of get Buffalo on board with maybe building a new stadium. Or if you don't, we can always go to Toronto and play all our home games there, kind of a leverage move, if you will. But if you're going to move, if you're going to bring baseball back to Montreal, uh, I mean, just do it 100%. The kind of half there and half in Tampa Bay, where they've already proven with a winning team, and I don't know. Don't ask me why. They just don't seem to support that franchise, and so I think Montreal's been without baseball long enough. I watched a documentary last year about it, and seems like that there's a lot of people would love to see it return, and so if you're going to do it, I think you go all the way, or this splitting that up like that. I just think that's a bad formula. I think it hurts both cities because
Mhm.
it leaves Montreal. Hey, we want the whole shebang, not why it's almost like a tease. And I mean, I hate to say this, people in Tampa Bay may not like it, that the ones that do support the team, but they've sort of had their chance to support that team, and even when they're winning, that the stadium is more than half empty. So I don't know if you can't fill a stadium more than that when you're winning. I don't know if it'll ever happen. So I hate to take baseball away from a city. I know they do have diehard fans there too, the ones that go, but you got to go where a stadium's full. I think they'd get that in Montreal, and but the 50-50 deal, I don't know about you, but I just think that's sort of silly, and
Doesn't make anyone
for
happy.
even no, it won't, and I don't even think the players themselves will like that.
No.
Where what's your home? your games are here. Most players will tell you that, the ones that are entrenched on the team that don't have to worry about getting sent down and that sort of thing. They usually live, they have a house where they play. Now, what do you? Not that they can't necessarily afford it, but now you got to have two houses. It's just confusing. And then with being in a different country as well, it's not like it's two American cities or two Canadian cities. It's one in each country. I mean, if you're gonna bring the Expos back, bring them back 100%, not this 50% stuff. So there's my soapbox on that. And I enjoyed going to the stadium and watching the Expos and whoever the visiting team was when I went. And I love to see Montreal get another team back. I think they deserve it. The way it kind of ended when they lost the team wasn't cool either. So I think they'll support it. I think they've shown that in the past, and I think I'm not Rob Manfred, but I do think it's time. So. All right. So, crazy, you've been doing this a long time. You grew up like me with kind of knowing, Tops's history and tradition in the landscape of sports cards, more specifically baseball. Kind of your thoughts. I mean, where things have changed so much in the last, 6 months. But when you heard the news that, Fanatics had, the first news to break was they had won the baseball licensing from the Players Union and Major League Baseball. Then in the next couple days and week, it came out that wasn't stopping there, that basketball and football were following suit. So just kind of someone like myself that's been doing this a while, kind of what were your initial kind of gut reaction to that news?
The licensing thing shocked the heck out of me. I wasn't anticipating it. It, how it went down shocked me.
Yep.
Who was the instigator behind it didn't really surprise me at all. I've kind of been thinking for a while that something was going to change, and if there was going to be any new entity coming in that already existed, it was probably going to be Fanatics, because
Yep.
they're this locomotive that has built up a lot of momentum real fast, and it just makes sense from the bit. I don't pretend to be a big business, like, inner working things. I don't get how that works too much, but there's enough to see when you look. If you just look a little bit closely and see things that's going on. So the fact that Fanatics came in and decided they're going to make cards, got some licenses, not shocking. The full blitzkrieg of we're taking this, and this all at once 2 weeks or 1 week before Tops was to vote on going public. That was a shocker.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the big surprise to me. But again, from a business side, it makes sense. Like, as soon as
Yeah.
it came out, it's like you kind of would look down the road and go, okay, well, that's the play to where we're at in the last couple of weeks, where now they've acquired Tops. It made sense. So here we are, whole new ballgame.
Yeah. I think you nailed it on the head with. I mean, that was the biggest thing to me is how this came out of nowhere. A lot of with social media, yourself, stuff leaks out ahead of time. Like how Tops at least is claiming, and I actually believe them, that they had no idea that Major League Baseball or the Players Union were actually negotiating the contract with someone else other than them. They were sort of blindsided. The fact that in today's social media and information age, that not one person, and I don't know how many people were involved in the negotiations, whether it was just two or three or 10, I don't know that number, but even at two or three, or if it's more, even more shocking that how that did not leak out at some point? How the word did not get back to top? How did someone, maybe even on the Major League Baseball side, just kind of call someone and say, "Hey, this is going on. You guys should
Yeah.
know about it." Um, that was what obviously anytime someone's done something for 70 years and then you find out they're no longer going to be doing that soon, that's shocking. But then when you realize how it was done without any kind of leakage of information, and them getting, it was almost like Oceans, I said on this show, it was like Oceans 13, like just everyone, had a role and pulled
Mhm.
it off. And, Michael Eisner, who runs Tops, I mean, this is a page out of his book. He usually winning these type of deals. And
Yeah.
so, I hate to say it, for, I'm sure it wasn't a good day in that office when that news broke. And he was on the rare other side of what he's used to doing himself. And
And he
I
made out
remember
okay.
when that, yeah, in the end, I mean, like you said, it was just before they were about to go public. I actually owned shares in that SPAC from Mudrick Capital, and that put the kibosh on that. I had to sell at a little bit of a loss. wasn't terrible, but definitely not was what I was planning or expecting to do. Truth be told, and I'm sure Eisner's a smart guy, so he's going to make the best deal, no matter in the end that what he has to work with, but
Yeah.
not how he planned to do it. And now we know that Fanatics has acquired Tops, and I hear a lot of people in so not a lot, but there's some people in social media, sort of, whether it's they just don't know how business works, like they're almost reporting it as almost like a merger or a partnership. That's not what it is. Fanatics has purchased Tops. I know Michael Rubin has said his intent is to keep all 350 employees if they'd like to stay under the Fanatics, company. We'll see, how many do and how many don't. I mean, I think for Fanatics, it was the wise thing to do on many
Mhm.
fronts. Obviously, Tops has that printing deal where they have the cards printed. That would have been uncharted territory for Fanatics. And Tops, I mean, those 5 letters carry a lot of weight still in the hobby, and 70 years of tradition on the baseball side. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. I'm born in the same city, basically Tops was. And so when that news broke, the first, when they lost, I was sad in that respect. That's something I sort of grew up on. And just, I'm not, nothing is necessary has to be forever, but you kind of always think Tops is going to do baseball.
Mhm.
And then when you find out that's not necessarily going to be the case, it really hits home. And so the sentimental old guy in me was sort of sad when I thought of a day that there may not be a baseball product with TOPPS on it one year, or for numerous years, even, or forever potentially. So I was hoping, a selfish part of me was hoping Fanatics would acquire Tops. That's what's happened. Your thoughts on the acquisition? You think that was smart on Fanatics' part? And what do you see? I mean, it's all speculation. I mean, no one
Totally.
knows. But
Totally.
if you have to play armchair Fanatics / Tops, how do you think this plays out?
Number one, I think it was the right move, business wise,
Yep.
everything wise. You get that personnel to start with. Even if you go in a different direction, you have people who know the industry as a starting point. You can add, subtract, do whatever you want with that. But there is a lot of experience there. The big piece, though, is the history. You have all those years of not only making cards, but the IP that goes with that. So all those
Yep.
designs, even when you get down to the nitty gritty of some of their things like Garbage Pail Kids, Mars Attacks, Wacky Packages, there's licensing in there. and that's a good thing from a business perspective. Um, so from that side, made perfect sense. With Fanatics, they're a technology-driven company, from what I understand. I don't see as much of them up here in Canada as I
Hmm.
think they are in the States. We can get stuff, but it's expensive to ship things and everything else. So they haven't taken over to the same extent, I don't think, up here yet. Yet. But because they're technology driven, I think they're going to bring some of those pieces that maybe Tops was missing or accelerate what they were working on. NFTs, not my thing, but they are
No.
for a lot of people. So their
Yep.
candy company, they'll be able to find some nice synergies in there with the licensing, everything else. I think my one of my biggest hopes is that by having the fresh company looking at it, and with the close contact that they have with the leagues, and now with the leagues and the player unions being part of this Fanatics Trading Cards company, having equity in it,
Yep.
that we'll see some improvements in things like autographs. You know, perfect world, they would all go back to on card and no sticker. I'm a no sticker guy if I can avoid
Yeah.
them. I understand why they exist and all that, but a card that's actually signed to me is cooler than a card that's on a sticker. So
Hmm.
one versus a 1B or even a two. Memorabilia. I hope we get more game use stuff across the board this way because Fanatics has access. They're making it make deals, figure it out. Um, I'm sure it's more complicated, but it can't be that hard. Even
Yeah.
something like today is going to be Fanatics Day, and all the jerseys worn in these games here will go towards memorabilia next year. So
Yeah.
boom, you have your assets. You can market the heck out of that too, and like Players Weekend or something. Though those are kind of the two uh, premium whatever hits things, even though those aren't necessarily what I like my autographs. But if memorabilia
Yeah.
all became game used again, I'd be way more interested. To me, the coolest cards are the ones that tell a story. And if there's a swatch in there that I can trace back to something and know what happened on that date, that's just a cool card to me, no matter what. So, um, but I think the other piece is that we have that tradition still going. Now we're all of a sudden what could have been the last year of Tops baseball is, I don't want to say just another year, but it is just another year because we're going to have that continuity, and then we can look further down the road, and we'll have Tops football back and Tops Chrome basketball back, and
Yeah.
you
Be
know
crazy.
and it might, we don't even know what the landscape's going to look like in 3 5 years. Maybe they're not done yet. Maybe there are more
Yeah.
companies to be acquired. um, but at the end of the day too, I don't want Fanatics just to do everything that Tops was already doing. I want to see some
Yeah.
I want to see
Yeah.
Fanatics. I want to see some sets that aren't Tops driven. What that looks like or feels like, I don't know. But if it's a Fanatics company, let's get some Fanatics sets or branding or something out there as well. And I think the final piece too goes with the technology is that we're going to see a more personalized hobby, where we can get cards that we want made ourselves, even more so than
Yeah.
Tops now, where we're just ordering for a certain amount of time. Um, Things connected to going to the ballpark and having cards connected with that, regional things. There's just all sorts of things with what Fanatics is already doing with their merchandise and their um, clothing. That how do we apply some of those same ideas to cards? I don't know. Let's see. Let's see. Let's have this conversation again in 5 years and
Yeah.
either compliment it or pick it apart or whatever, and go from there.
Yeah, all great points. I agree. And as much as I kind of stick up for Tops, Ryan, but let's, you got to be honest. They've dropped the ball along the way. I think that's what really opened the door for those sort of quiet negotiations that where we are now. But you know, you hear people complain. It's not just Tops. In Tops's defense, people complain about Panini. People even complain about Upper Deck, maybe a little bit less, if you will. But let's see what, for like you said, let's see what Fanatics can do to improve the product. I mean, obviously, anytime you take over something, you want to make it better than it already was, even if it was great or very
Mhm.
good. You want to make it better. I mean, you don't want to take something over and fall short or be worse or have someone say, "Man, this was so much of a better product before Fanatics got the license." I mean, that's the doomsday scenario for them, especially they're rumored to have it for 20 years, so they don't want to get that sort of negative reputation. So, I too agree that it'll be nice to see maybe some of their own innovation in their own brand new products that they're put their own spin and touch on things. And if you're going to pay that much for a license, I'm probably a pretty safe bet that they're going to do that. I mean, I'm sure they had things in mind even before they acquired Tops. Like I told people on this very show, for a sale to be made, you have to have two parties agree, right? I might want to, Fanatics might want to buy Tops, but if Tops don't want to sell themselves or they can't agree on a price, then the deal doesn't happen. So I don't think Fanatics knew for sure that they were going to acquire Tops. I'm sure they had, blueprints to do that, but until the deal gets agreed upon. So I'm sure they had stuff already, on the drawing table that, we don't know for sure we're going to get Tops, but so we have to, kind of plan A and plan B, and then plan C, where's where we get them, and we kind of use both, right? Stuff we want to do on our own, and that Tops IP, as you mentioned. So it's definitely going to be interesting. What the deal does is, it's like a new toy at Christmas. You want to, come down in the morning, run to the tree, rip open the wrapping paper and see what it is, and put it together if it needs assembly or play with it. And that's the thing, Fanatics won that licensing, but they weren't before the acquisition of Tops. They were going to have to wait the 2026 before they really got to play with the. I use analogy, play with the toy. I know that's sort of a real baseline way to say it, but now with acquiring Tops, they can do it as soon as they can get on that crank that stuff out there. I've said it's probably before we really see Fanatics's touch on. I think it's going to be 2023. A lot of the 2022 stuff's probably already sort of
Mhm.
in the works and design wise and stuff. So I think it'll be 2023 before we see sort of what Fanatics is going to bring to the table. But they'll tell you it beats it. They rather do it in 2023 than have to wait till 2026. So, now the big talk is whether they, acquire Panini. I mean, just playing armchair Fanatics. I mean, number one, I guess, do you think they want to purchase Panini, and do you expect it?
Honest do they need it? Is kind of the
Yeah,
the point that I keep going back to. It's like if they got Panini first, then you could make the argument that they would also need Tops for the
yep,
IP.
yep,
Panini has some really good IP, and they have a lot of brands because they have all those
yeah,
90 most of the 90s ones. Upper Deck has, the Fleer in the Skybox, but all
yep,
those other ones, Panini has them, which could be good, but how many products are you gonna make? Where do you wanna differentiate them? Um, Soccer, where does the international soccer piece fit into it as well? If that would even be part of a deal, because maybe it sale is just
yep,
Panini America. So who knows? I have no idea. I could see it going either way myself. Um, when it when Fanatics first jumped into the scene, my gut was telling me two companies. I don't think Upper Deck's going to happen now once they sign
yep,
their new hockey deal.
Yep.
I think Upper Deck's happy in their sandbox that they're doing, and with hockey and Michael Jordan and LeBron, and they're really hitting that nostalgia piece with the Metal Universe right now. And I think we could see them. I'm curious to see what they're going to be doing with the NFT stuff, even if that's not my wheelhouse. They've got they have a history of doing interesting things, so we'll see. But since Fanatics got tops first, I honestly could see it going. I'm not going to be shocked. Let's put it that way. The shock is out of the system.
Yeah.
It could happen. It might not. I don't know. Sorry, I'm sitting on the fence. I'm Canadian. That's
Well, I'll make you feel better, Ryan, because that's you took the words right out of my mouth. I feel almost exactly the same way. If they would have bought Panini first or acquired Panini first, I still think Tops would have been a big chess piece to still knock over. But now that it's the other way, when you think of Panini, and I'm not just trying to say these are the only three brands they do, but the first three big brands you think of are Prism, Flawless, and National Treasures. That's their, three, you know, gems or jewels in the collection. But if you're Fanatics now, you could say, well, we're now acquiring Tops, and we don't buy Panini. When their license runs out, Tops Chrome becomes the Prism, and
mhm.
we don't need a Prism, and we've sort of eliminated the competition because they can't make it, and so Tops Chrome sort of is not battling really anybody. It's its own enterprise in itself. And we can make our own. We can't call it Flawless or National Treasures, but we can make that high end, that premium, expensive, seven card, uh, really nice looking product, and just call it something else. Everyone will
It's
kind of put two and two together, know what this is modeled after, but whatever they want to name it or brand it. And I'm again, there's a human element to this. I know you feel the same way. I don't want necessary as someone who lost their employment earlier this year, doing good now, but I don't want to see people necessarily uh, lose their employment, but it is a business, and business decisions have to be made. I think you touched on it, and I kind of agree. Like, it might be better business wise for Fanatics kind of to sort of let it run its course, and then replace those products that can't be produced anymore with their own spin on it. And in a sense, Topps Chrome sort of becomes the de facto Prism without having to compete against it. And
which it was
there's a lot.
originally like that was the
Yeah.
first person anyways.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and actually I was thinking the other day, just probably in the shower, because that's where just random thoughts pop into my head. And the big challenge for Tops, I would say, is historically being those super premium products. They make them,
Yeah.
they're nice, but they don't have that like prestige level of national treasures. Like they just
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Transcendence a little different, but that's because Transcendent has that party connected to it.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a different, distinct brand. So kind of where my train of thought as I was washing my hair was Fanatics is the memorabilia. That's
Yeah.
where they can really make their point, is introducing some sort of new Fanatics level super premium luxury. Either way, I'm just going to be looking at pictures of it myself, because that's not my.
Yeah. No, I hear
I
you.
love looking at it, but and all the power to those that get it. But I'm happy just looking and in window shopping
Yeah.
with that stuff. So that was kind of where my thinking was, is that might be the opportunity for the new Fanatics brands. Because in football,
Yeah.
Tops they introduced 5 star and it did okay, but
Yeah.
National Treasures has had all that time since to carve out, that much more brand leverage and affinity and stuff like that. And basketball, I can't even really think of a real high end Tops basketball from when they did it, to be honest. It was
Yeah.
Chrome
Yeah. Just the
Chrome and
Chrome.
Finest
It
was
was
a
the
big one.
Chrome.
And
Yeah,
they
Chrome,
tried
Chrome.
different things. I remember the cards with that had money in it. The what was it? Luxury box. I don't even remember that. Might have been luxury box, but there was. I
Yeah,
don't know if you remember. They had $100 bills inside of cards. That was weird. But
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't
And
think we'll
then
see
now
that
we've
again.
seen. Yeah, well, we've seen the silver bars and some of the Panini product, and but yeah, it's going to be interesting to say the least. And you mentioned Transcendent, which is a great product, but comes at a very high price. I believe
Very.
it's the most expensive product. Like you, that's nothing. The closest I'd ever get to owning that is probably buying into a break and just hoping it's like a lottery ticket. Hope you hit something, the bigger piece of the fun to watch, like breaks on YouTube and stuff, and
Yeah. Oh, and
seeing
the
what
cards
comes
look
out of it
gorgeous.
from yeah, and even like a George Washington autograph and just some crazy Abraham Lincoln and just some crazy, even non-sports related like one-on-one stuff. It's just it's like a history lesson in watching that
Mm.
boxer case get open. But Fanatics can, I think, do like you said with the jerseys, with the apparel they've already do with their relationship now with the players union, which they've already had a good one. That's one of the reasons the deal went down in the first place. Is they can probably put their own spin on that. They'd obviously have to call it something else other than flawless or national treasures. But I think we all know in the hobby that been around long enough will know what that product is sort of modeled or based after, and they might be able to do it better, and I'm sure they'll believe they can do that better. So it's like you said, it's going to be an interesting next 2 to 5 years, Ryan. I think the next 2 to 5 years, really how it goes is going to kind of shape where the next 10, 15, 20 years are going to go with the landscape changing with Fanatics now coming in. It's going to be fun and interesting to watch. And, I feel a little bit better now with Top sort of being acquired, kind of take a deep breath and know, for the sentimental person in me from New York that product's gonna, that name's gonna live on in some capacity. I don't know if only shoe to drop it, whether it's Panini or maybe even a smaller boutique company they purchase. A Leaf maybe on the table, Onyx, Wild Card came back this year. Maybe they want to, acquire that if they deem they can kind of take it and bring it to the next level. Those folks in that they have a lot of smart people there that have an idea what they kind of want to do. So it's going to be fun to watch. And interesting to say the least. We'll be talking about this, for a while. So I know some people are like, enough already. Before the acquisition of Taps, people were like, "Hey, we're like 3 years, 4 years away from seeing anything of reality," and now that's just been pushed up now. And so for those people that were like fanatics out, I got bad news for them. It's just that the acquisition is going to keep that talk going and even in a different direction. So it's going to be fun to watch and or at least interesting, if not fun. So uh, I appreciate you coming on, Ryan. I know you have your finger on the pulse just from what you do. Was definitely interested in hearing some of the things you were doing personally and your take on this, all of the transactions and the business side of the hobby, which is it is important. It's anyone that people say, I hate to talk about that, but it's the driving force really behind it. Whether you do it for that reason or not, it's just a huge factor that we have to talk about it. So I appreciate you sharing some time and coming on, and hopefully we can have you back again somewhere down the line. And I'm sure there'll be some new stuff to on the table to discuss. I always give the guest the final word. Give out any of your where people can find you, websites, all that good stuff to see what you're doing.
Sure. The stuff that I write every day, Beckett.com/news. That'll take you right to the news page. If you just kind of want to see what's going on in the hobby, see what new sets are coming, what are out, checklists, all that stuff. Beckett.com/news. You can find me. I'm active really only on Twitter on social media, and it's at Trader Cracks. So Ryan, the origin of that is I like to trade baseball cards, so Trader, and my last name's Cracknell, so Cracks. Trader
Yeah.
Cracks, nothing to do with drugs, nothing to do with stocks or forex or something weird that I get weird emails for sometimes. Just
Yeah.
Trader Crack.
All right. There you go. Ryan, thanks again, man. I appreciate you coming on. I know you're busy and sharing some of that insight with us.
Thank you.